Imagine spending like 10 years meticulously building this escape pod to flee your miserable corporate job.
Hmm.
You scrape together every spare part, you finally hit the launch button, and you blast off into the silent, peaceful stars.
Right.
But then, after a few days in your perfectly quiet escape pod, you look around and realize you're just floating in a tin can,
Yeah.
alone, with absolutely nothing to do, like forever.
It is the ultimate be careful what you wish for scenario.
Exactly. And today, we're looking at why the modern obsession with financial independence is actually kind of a psychological trap.
Yeah, we get so hyper-focused on engineering this perfect escape velocity from the workforce that we, completely forget to program a destination into the navigation system.
Welcome to the deep dive. If you are someone who loves those aha moments that just completely flip conventional wisdom upside down, you are in exactly the right place.
For sure.
We are unpacking a massive stack of research, critiques, and psychological analyses focused entirely on the financial independence movement. Basically, we're dissecting why treating a specific number in your brokerage account as a proxy for like the salvation and permanent liberty is fundamentally flawed.
Right. And to set the baseline here, we obviously have to acknowledge that financial precarity is genuinely terrible.
Absolutely.
Operating without a safety net is a nightmare no one should endure. So what we are analyzing today isn't basic financial security or responsible investing.
Yeah, we're talking about the extreme end.
Exactly. We are unpacking the hyper-accelerated, hyper-optimized pursuit of the earliest possible exit from the workforce. And the data reveals something pretty startling.
Which is?
While hitting your magic number solves your immediate money stress, it utterly fails to solve the deeper problem of what to actually do with a human life.
Wow.
In many cases, it actually triggers an outright collapse of identity.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the actual journey required to hit that magic number. Because it is not just, a spreadsheet exercise.
Right at all.
It's an incredibly grueling psychological marathon that inflicts a lot of unseen collateral damage.
Yeah, the path to extreme financial independence essentially requires adopting what they call a deferred life plan.
A deferred life plan.
Right. To hit those targets, you are looking at a decade or more of aggressive extreme frugality. You're often pushing savings rates to like 50 or 60%.
Which is wild.
It is. And this happens during your 30s and 40s. Those are your most vital, energetic years. The physical vitality and the compounding social experiences of that decade, they simply cannot be retroactively purchased when you're 55. I don't care how overfunded your index funds are.
You essentially undergo this intense psychological shift that turns into the instrumentalization of life.
Yes.
Every single decision, a morning coffee, attending your friend's destination wedding, a simple dinner out, it all gets aggressively filtered through the lens of ROI.
Everything has to have a return on investment.
Exactly. Life stops being a continuous experience and becomes this giant math problem. The present moment is just a hurdle you have to clear to unlock the future.
That's a great way to put it.
It makes me think about someone who spends a decade eating nothing but plain white rice so they can save up for this lavish, world-class gourmet banquet.
Oh, man.
Right? But by the time they finally sit down at the banquet 10 years later, they realize they've completely killed their taste buds.
Yeah.
They don't even possess the biological capacity to enjoy the rich food anymore.
That analogy maps perfectly onto the actual neurobiology of what is happening.
Wait, really? It's neurological.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
When you aggressively restrict spending for a decade, you are essentially training your brain's dopamine pathways to reward hoarding and penalize spending.
Wow. So you're physically changing your brain.
Right. You are actively building a neurological stress response to the very act of letting go of resources. This creates a deeply entrenched scarcity mindset.
So you essentially build a mental cage that you can't just unlock because the math changed.
Precisely. You don't just hit your magic number, flip a switch, and suddenly become this, carefree, generous spender.
Right, because your brain is still wired for rice.
Exactly. If you spend 15 years training your amygdala to feel panic when money leaves your account, and you only find dopamine hits in watching the balance go up, that restriction becomes permanent.
That sounds exhausting.
People hit their target, they have millions in the bank, and they still experience physical anxiety, paying for a latte, or booking a hotel. The mechanism for spontaneous joy has entirely atrophied.
Okay, let me push back on this a little bit, or at least, play devil's advocate for the listener who is deep in their fire spreadsheets right now.
Fair enough.
You could argue that even if someone emerges from that decade a bit frugal, or maybe they sweat the small purchases, having $3 or $4 million sitting in a diversified portfolio, generating passive income, I mean, that provides an unshakable peace of mind, right?
You would think so.
Doesn't that passive income act as the ultimate psychological safety net?
That is the core promise of the movement. But the psychological reality is that the relief is largely an illusion.
An illusion.
The anxiety doesn't vanish, it simply transforms.
How so?
You swap the offensive struggle of your career, where you are focused on how much you can earn, how you can build, how you can climb, for a deeply defensive, high-stakes struggle.
Oh, playing defense.
Right. You are now entirely focused on how to protect this static pile of money for the next 40 or 50 years. You transition from playing to win to playing not to lose.
And playing not to lose has to be agonizing when the rules of the global economy are, constantly shifting underneath you.
It creates a state of inherent fragility.
Inherent fragility, I like that term.
The entire philosophy sells this idea that a massive brokerage account makes you invincible, like an island unto yourself. But your magic number is actually a moving illusion.
Because of stuff you can't control.
Exactly. It's tethered to macroeconomic forces completely outside your control. Think about the massive healthcare costs you have to shoulder if you retire at 40, knowing you have 25 years before Medicare kicks in.
Right.
Or consider the shifting baseline of inflation.
Not to mention the obsession over sequence of returns risk.
Oh, yes.
Everyone in the FI community builds their entire withdrawal strategy around avoiding a market crash in those first few years of retirement.
They do.
But the psychological toll of actually living through like a 30% market drop in year 2, watching your portfolio bleed out while you were selling assets at rock bottom just to buy groceries,
Yep.
I mean, that's something the math simply cannot prepare you for.
It really can't. That fear hangs over early retirees constantly. It shatters the illusion of total control.
Yeah.
And to your earlier point about the comfort of quote-unquote passive income is rarely truly passive.
Right, someone has to manage it.
Managing a highly optimized dividend portfolio, rebalancing assets, or dealing with the operational headaches of real estate investments, these things demand ongoing cognitive bandwidth and stress.
So you're basically taking on a new job anyway.
A very stressful one. A medical crisis, a divorce, or a prolonged bear market can upend decades of meticulous spreadsheet planning in a single afternoon.
Okay, so the math is incredibly stressful, the goalposts keep moving, and you are neurologically wired to feel guilty about spending the money anyway.
Pretty bleak.
But let's assume the best case scenario. Let's say the math holds up beautifully.
Okay.
The market is on a historic bull run.
Yeah.
Your healthcare is completely sorted, and you wake up on a Tuesday morning with unlimited free time and no job to go to.
The dream.
Right. But this is where the psychological cliff really drops out from under people, according to the sources.
What's fascinating here is how fundamentally modern culture misunderstands the psychological function of work.
Yes, tell me about that.
We have been conditioned to view our jobs through a purely transactional lens, just an exchange of time for capital.
Like, I give you 40 hours, you give me a paycheck.
Exactly. But the sociological literature argues that work actually provides the essential architecture for the human psyche.
Structure.
It acts as a mastering project. A demanding career provides a distinct mission, it requires cognitive effort, and it establishes a daily cadence that structures our internal world.
Which brings us to the resistance principle.
Right.
The concept that human beings actually require friction to thrive.
Evolutionarily speaking, the human brain is a problem-solving machine. We evolved to overcome obstacles.
We need things to fix.
Exactly. Excellence, emotional regulation, and cognitive growth all require resistance, much in the same way that maintaining physical muscle mass requires the resistance of gravity or lifting weights.
Yeah.
When you completely remove the external demands, the deadlines, the complex interpersonal problems you have to navigate at an office, the mind does not suddenly find total zen.
It doesn't.
No. It drifts into mental atrophy.
Going back to our astronaut in the escape pod, it's exactly like floating in zero gravity.
Oh, that's perfect.
You finally escape the crushing gravity of a 9-to-5 job. And for a brief moment, floating around feels completely weightless and liberating.
It's euphoric.
But without that gravity, without that constant, invisible friction pushing against your body every single day, your bones, literally lose density.
Right.
Your muscles waste away. The psychological equivalent is losing your grit, your patience, and your mental sharpness.
Yes.
Freedom from a boss or a commute is entirely different than freedom for a distinct, meaningful purpose.
Taking that zero gravity analogy a step further, the timeline for that psychological deterioration is incredibly predictable.
Really? How long does it take?
The literature outlines a profound pattern of hedonic adaptation. For the first 6 months after achieving financial independence, it genuinely feels like the greatest vacation of your life.
I'm sure it does.
The alarm clock is off, you are traveling, you are sleeping in, it is fantastic.
Right.
But the next 6 years often devolve into a low-grade existential crisis.
Oh, wow.
Nature and the human ego abhors a vacuum. We possess an innate need to feel useful, to engage in virtuous activity.
And when you don't have that, it leads straight into identity collapse.
Absolutely.
You spend 20 years building your entire self-concept around achievement, maximizing income, and aggressively hitting targets.
Yes.
Then you arrive at a dinner party on a Friday night. Someone asks the inevitable question, what do you do? And you have no answer.
Or you offer a very hollow answer, like, I manage my own portfolio so I don't have to do anything.
Which just sounds awful.
It does. That isn't a narrative that binds you to the broader human experience. It doesn't signal contribution.
Right.
This is precisely why so many hardcore early retirees quietly end up going back to work or launching intensive startups or taking on massive, highly structured hobbies.
They need a new mastery project.
Exactly. The self requires a complex project to remain sharp and tethered to reality.
And that identity collapse doesn't just happen in an isolated vacuum. It bleeds outward into your relationships, which brings us to the social consequences of all this.
Navigating an existential crisis is hard enough, but navigating it alone exacerbates the entire process.
Yeah, because you abruptly exit the workforce decades ahead of schedule, and you run headfirst into a wall of unintended isolation.
You suddenly have unlimited Tuesday afternoons to do whatever you want, but your entire social circle, your family, your peers, they are all still on the clock.
Right, you have the freedom to go anywhere, but you have no one to go with, because the rest of the world is operating on a Monday to Friday rhythm.
You effectively forfeit your membership in the shared rhythm of society.
That's kind of tragic.
For better or worse, the world of work provides a universal common language. The shared complaints about a difficult client, the mutual celebration of a hard-won promotion, the collective exhaustion of a long week.
Yeah, everyone can relate to that.
Right. That shared struggle is the glue that binds people together. When you opt out of that ecosystem entirely, the social fabric of your life begins to unravel. You lose the context for relating to your peers.
I found it incredibly ironic in the sources that even when early retirees try to solve this isolation by seeking out community among other FI enthusiasts, the environment often turns immediately toxic.
Oh, it really does.
They end up recreating the exact same competitive stress they just spent 15 years trying to escape.
Exactly.
They start playing these intense metric-driven status games. It turns into, oh, you retired at 42. Well, I managed to retire at 38.
Or your withdrawal rate is 3%. I've optimized mine down to 2.5.
Right. It's wild.
Human beings are fundamentally wired for hierarchy and status. If you strip away the corporate ladder and the traditional markers of professional success, the ego will simply construct a new ladder.
A ladder made out of savings rates and extreme frugality hacks.
Yeah, exactly. And tax optimization strategies. The anxiety and the need to compare yourself to others doesn't vanish. It just finds a new metric to attach itself to.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, looking at the macro level.
Yeah.
There is a deeply compelling argument in these analyses that the entire financial independence movement is, at its core, just privatizing a massive societal problem.
This is perhaps the most vital critique of the entire philosophy. It forces us to look at what people are actually running away from.
Right, like, are we just solving the wrong problem entirely?
Yes.
By fleeing the workforce as aggressively as possible, aren't we essentially admitting defeat to a toxic corporate culture?
Essentially, yes.
It is like we are collectively saying management is abusive, work-life balance is a myth, and modern labor lacks all intrinsic meaning. So instead of organizing or demanding better conditions or pushing for systemic reform, I am just going to hoard enough capital to build my own personal bunker and abandon ship.
You are looking at a classic exit versus voice scenario.
What does that mean?
Instead of using their voice to improve the system, the most capable, highly disciplined workers are utilizing all their energy to optimize a personal exit strategy.
So they just leave instead of fixing it.
Right. But optimizing your escape route does absolutely nothing to fix the systemic conditions that made you so desperate to leave in the first place.
That's just running away.
Financial independence doesn't fix a micromanaging boss, it doesn't cure burnout, and it doesn't imbue meaningless tasks with purpose. It simply removes you from the context.
And because you haven't actually addressed the root cause of your dissatisfaction, the anxiety just packs its bags and follows you to the beach.
Exactly.
You haven't healed the psychological wound. You've just relocated the patient.
So long as the underlying relationship with work and self-worth remains unexamined, the location of the body doesn't matter. The mind will find a way to manufacture the same stress in retirement.
So what does this all mean?
For the listener,
Yeah. If you are tuning in and you have been aggressively tracking your net worth, diligently buying index funds and, dreaming of the day, you can dramatically throw your laptop into the ocean.
a common fantasy.
How do you actually apply the very real power of these financial principles without falling into the trap we've just spent the last 15 minutes deconstructing?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to recognize what the underlying human desire actually is.
Okay.
The driving force behind the FI movement isn't a deep-seated love of accumulation. It's not about worshiping the money itself. The ultimate objective is autonomy.
Autonomy. The profound feeling that your time and your life belongs entirely to you.
Yes, people are utilizing financial independence as a blunt force proxy for agency.
But hyperaccumulation is like an incredibly slow, painful, and inefficient instrument for achieving that agency.
Right. The shift happens when we stop treating a magic portfolio number as a secular religion or a final destination and start treating capital as a tool to engineer a better present reality.
So instead of grinding miserably for 15 years to construct an impenetrable $3 million bunker, the alternative is focusing on intentional work design,
Yes.
using your capital to reclaim autonomy right now, today.
The literature points to alternative frameworks like Coast-FI or semi-retirement.
Oh, like where you don't fully quit.
Exactly. The idea is that once you have saved enough to secure your baseline future compounding, you take your foot off the gas.
You stop obsessing over the savings rate.
Right. Instead of destroying your mental health for total absolute freedom at 40, you use your financial runway to negotiate a 4-day work week right now.
Or you pivot into a lower-paying role in a field you actually find deeply meaningful.
Yes. You leverage your savings to set boundaries, not to sever ties with the world.
Because the fantasy people are chasing isn't actually about idleness.
Not at all.
Nobody truly wants to sit in a room doing nothing for 40 years. The fantasy is about optionality.
Optionality is key.
It is about possessing the structural power to say no to a toxic situation and the freedom to say yes to work that actually aligns with your values.
Building on that, true resilience, the kind of robust security that survives market crashes and identity crises, does not come solely from financial assets.
What else does it come from?
It requires investing in your non-financial assets with the exact same intensity and discipline you apply to your stock portfolio.
So we're talking about the assets that actually dictate your quality of life on a random Tuesday afternoon.
Precisely. Your physical health, your emotional resilience, your intellectual curiosity, and above all, your relationships.
Yeah.
Your 30s and 40s are the critical decades where you build deep, compounding friendships and establish your physical baseline for the second half of your life.
And if you sacrifice all that just to hit a number,
Exactly. If you sacrifice all your relationships and your physical health to aggressively save money, arriving at age 45 with a massive bank account won't cure your resulting loneliness or your chronic back pain.
that's a sobering thought.
True wealth is the ability to engage with the world on your own terms while you still possess the vitality to enjoy the struggle. Deferring your actual life for a number on a screen is a profound miscalculation.
Because life isn't an escape room you're just trying to win and exit. It is the room you actually have to inhabit and make beautiful.
Beautifully said.
We have covered a tremendous amount of ground today. We examined how the extreme frugality trap can neurologically wire your brain for a permanent scarcity mindset.
Right.
We dismantled the illusion of the magic number, exploring how it transforms offensive ambition into a highly fragile, defensive anxiety.
Yes.
We navigated the identity vacuum, our astronaut floating in zero gravity, and concluded that day-to-day autonomy, rather than a massive isolated bank account, is the true ultimate goal.
Which brings us full circle to the resistance principle we analyzed earlier.
Right. A need for friction.
The undeniable psychological reality that human beings fundamentally require friction to grow, to find meaning, and to stave off mental atrophy. Which leaves us with a final paradigm shift to consider for our listener.
Let's hear it.
If a meaningful life actually requires good friction, if the psychological goal isn't just a permanently empty calendar, then the defining question of your financial journey shouldn't be, how do I accumulate enough capital to escape all my problems?
I love where this is going.
The real question you should be optimizing for is, if money were no object, what kind of problems would you actually choose to solve?
What problems would you choose to solve? That is the perfect reframing. Because staring at the blank wall of a fully funded escape pod forever isn't a solution to the human condition.
No, it's not.
It is just a much more expensive kind of trap. Thank you for diving into the deep end with us and for bringing such a challenging, paradigm-shifting set of concepts to the table today.
It was my pleasure.
Keep chasing knowledge, keep building your optionality, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.